Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
Hey guys, let's go.
20 Drew Binsky, preemptive like 20 biggest cultural differences for Americans in Europe. My name's Connor if you're new. Hope you're all doing well. Sorry, wasn't really in camera. Let's go. What have I said? My name's Connor. Original link top of the description. Let's go. 20 biggest cultural difference for Americans in Europe. I feel like I repeated myself a
Spent more
lot
than
there.
2.5 years living on the continent. I've traveled to every single country in Europe and spent more than 2.5 years living on the continent.
The city is just magical. Gives me the goosebumps.
But as an American,
I believe Drew Binsky, I could be wrong, has been to every country. Is he one of those? I've seen a few Drew Binsky videos. I think he has been to every, not just all European.
I got to admit.
The city is just magical. Gives me the goosebumps.
But as an American, I got to admit, things are a little bit different here than back home. It costs $3 to use this bathroom. Of course, there are many similarities. Both the United States and Europe are leaders in innovation. They share a love for sports and produce the world's most famous movies, music, and fashion trends. Both have world-class universities, high standards of living, and share
No grass
music and
gets my gitters going.
fashion trends.
I don't even know what that means.
Both have world-class universities.
Then like Oxford, Cambridge, English University lawn areas, or I guess you'd call them gardens. Oh, look how good that is.
Cities, high standards
I
of living,
appreciate
and
grass.
share commitment to human rights. But in this video, I want to share with you 20 cultural differences that I find between the US and the majority of Europe, all based on my own personal travel experiences. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with my thoughts.
Thank you.
Dankeschön.
Bitteschön.
Dankeschön.
We're here in Salzburg, Austria, at a beautiful cafe here, right on the water. But the problem is, we can't order because they don't come to your table, even if you flag them down. Dude, can you flag them down? He's here. Oh, Diana got him. Good job. You're so shy.
He totally ignored me too.
Is it awkward? This is actually the home of Mozart. He was born just around the corner from here. I wonder if he had to wait this long to get a table. How are you?
Mozart was kind of weird, wasn't he? Or am I thinking of someone else? Like he, like.
I'll have the same ham and cheese toast and then oh, sorry.
Two toast, two cappuccino.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And pate, thank you. It's awkward. In the US, the waiters and waitresses go over the top to make sure your experience is like top. Yeah, because they get tips. And they'll check on you every 5 minutes, like, oh, we just want to make sure everything's okay. But here in Europe, like, they don't give a about you. They basically come by, they're like, hey, what do you want?
Kind of like that.
Yeah, I kind of like it too. In the US, they step over your toes too much sometimes, and then you feel awkward. You're like, okay, go away.
Like, all right, yeah,
Food
no,
is
I don't
finally
need more
here,
bread.
and man, can't beat a cappuccino in Europe. Duda has
Longest.
pate, but he won't eat it.
Really? What is cappuccino? Espresso. I was thinking of espresso. That's the super tiny little like shot.
Meal was great. Now we're just trying to pay. It's always an interesting experience. I told the guy we could pay. He goes, yes, be back. It's like walking back and forth. Excuse me. How do you say excuse me in German?
Entschuldigung.
We've been trying to pay for like 15 minutes, but
Oh my God. Just,
yeah, they just.
wait to raise his hand.
I raised my hand like 5 times. I might have to rely on you to do that for me.
Entschuldigung.
Thank you. Hi. We just have pay, please. Yeah.
She was nice.
So I just got this rental car in Germany, and you have no idea how much of a pain in the ass it was to get an automatic car. Almost all the cars in Europe are manual, which I know I'm gonna get made fun of in this video because most Americans don't know how to drive stick shift, but at least they have them, that's for sure.
The last time I went to Europe, we flew into Heathrow. Me, my dad, and my brother. My dad was driving, and he could do stick. He did it fine. But yeah, it was stick, and it was an Audi that we got from the Heathrow airport, and so it was stick, but the driver's side is on the right side of the car, and my dad's left-handed, so maybe that kind of helped him out. But he was fine. And then we went through the Channel Tunnel, and so we went from not being used to driving on the left side of the road with the steering wheel on the right side of the car, and then driving to France with that car, and now driving on the right side of the road with the wheel on the right side, with stick. It was interesting. I couldn't have done it.
When you think about driving in America, Americans love their big trucks and SUVs, and we also drive on the right side of the road, where in Europe, it's mostly on the right side, but some countries like Ireland and the UK, it's on the left side.
Driving on the Autobahn here where there's no speed limit and the cars are flying by.
Oh.
Like just...
What are the other countries? I think Japan drives on the left side. Could be wrong there. I'm not... I feel like the UK with driving on the side of the road that they do is like about as popular with other countries as the US using not using the metric system. You know, like it's that rare. I think Australia, maybe New Zealand might drive on the left side.
And they drive right on your tail, and if you don't pull over, they'll just like right behind you. Pretty intimidating. I'm going 130. That car must be going 200.
Also, when you're
Kilometers?
driving
Or...
in Europe, you have to look out for all the little signs and the little bumps everywhere. It's quite different than back home. So you just gotta really pay attention. And of course, the signs aren't all in English, which makes sense because these countries don't speak English as a first language. So you just gotta...
A little more is that American cities are so like gridded, which just makes it have no personality and no aesthetic good or whatever. But European cities, the roads are much more less like designed from the ground up. You know, it's very historical. You have winding streets. Some intersections in Europe, like when we were in a taxi in Paris, the guy was good. He was driving pretty, but the traffic was crazy, and the intersections were like no lights and just like a giant roundabout, I guess.
Pay extra close attention to what's going on the street in front of you.
See that sign on the right? What does it say?
You have metros, trams, buses, a lot of pedestrians, people on bicycles. There's a lot more going on when you're driving in cities in Europe. And also, the roads can be really, really, really narrow, like where you have to fold your mirror in just to get through a little alleyway. It's really, really stressful sometimes if you're not used to it. And you have to have really good judgment on the boundaries of your car.
Careful on the right side. Okay.
I think I gotta pull this in.
How was the drive?
The cobblestone streets are this big and the car is this big.
All right, it's time for a little gasoline experience in Europe. Check this out. So first, you pull in like usual. But the tricky thing is that most rental cars, let's say, I don't know about most cars, but rental cars take diesel, not regular gasoline. You can't f it up, otherwise the car's not gonna drive. So I gotta go diesel. Choose the right one, so diesel. You put it in.
And you pump before you pay a lot.
If you've noticed, I haven't paid anything yet.
Yeah.
I have not paid a cent. I'm just coming.
That's so awesome. That would not happen in America. People would just drive off.
Here and putting gas straight into the car. It works on the trust system here. You fill up the tank and then you go inside and pay. So technically I could just drive off without paying. There's a lot of cameras here, so I'll definitely get caught and I'll definitely get a bill in the mail or something. But if you're in a pinch and you're in a rush and you have to get gas and you have to dip out, you could technically do it for free and not pay the bill. But that wouldn't be a good thing to do. Next thing you'll notice is the prices. It's pretty expensive. I'm only filling up a half tank right now of this car. It was exactly half. About $60 for a half a tank. That's expensive.
Holy crap. And it's not even a bit.
The bill. Engine, use a lot here. Camera tank right now of this car.
And it's just a sedan?
Exactly half. About $60 for a half a tank.
I bet you my car, it's a Volvo, has a bigger tank. And I fill it up. I'd say like $55, I think is usually from, you know, filling up a full tank, maybe 60, but for half a tank.
That's expensive. And now I go inside and pay.
And it's euros.
So, number 9.
Is the euro bigger than the dollar? I think it is.
Thank you. Bye-bye. To be honest, it is a pretty efficient system. Once you
Dankeschön.
get the hang of it.
Merci beaucoup.
Americans work longer hours and get fewer vacation days than Europeans, almost across the board. In the US, the average worker gets about 2 weeks of paid vacation per year, while here in Europe, employees often enjoy up to 6 weeks. Europeans like to call these breaks holidays, whereas we call them vacations. The two words essentially mean the same thing, but in Europe, they take their leisure time very seriously. If you just visit any park in any European city, you'll see people out frolicking around, having If you just visit any park in any European city, you'll
Oh, is this? I thought this was in Switzerland where I'd been before, but it could just be any other crossing. It looked a lot like it, but I'm not sure.
see people out frolicking around, having a picnic, going on a bike ride, or simply just laying there and spending the whole day outside. In America, we have this culture of being really busy and overworked and feeling like it's a good thing, like we strive for that, we want that. Where in Europe, it seems to be the opposite.
I've always wanted to go on those.
Yes, you can make the argument that this is why so many innovations come from the US, because we are go-getters, which is awesome. But you could also make the argument that Europeans do enjoy their lives more. Many Americans see long hours as a sign of productivity and success. They often brag about their packed schedules and time spent at the office. Europeans, on the other hand, value downtime and believe taking time off to recharge is essential for well-being and productivity. Clearly the party's over there.
I think there's a mindset in the US a lot where it's like, even if you have time off, well, you can work, and that means you're working more than someone else and getting ahead. And so I think there's just a underlying competitive attitude towards work in America for a lot of people. Yeah, I sure like that, the more business type.
Even in some European countries like Spain, businesses will shut down for a few hours in the afternoon for a long break.
Siesta.
In the US, this would be unheard of, where lunch is nothing more than a quick meal at your desk. The work week also differs significantly. In France and Germany, the standard work week is about 35 hours, with strict limits on overtime. In the US, the typical work week is 40 hours, with many people working much more. America's private healthcare system is crazy expensive, whereas in most of Europe, they offer universal healthcare funded by taxes. Americans will often go to the emergency room for urgent care, while Europeans see general practitioners regularly and have easy access to local clinics.
Guys, I really want to know if there are any downsides to this. I'm not trying to I'm not being defensive of American healthcare. I'm not saying American healthcare is good, but I'm just am curious of, like, are there any downsides to the European style of healthcare? Just wondering.
In the US,
Yeah,
having a
like
medical
wait time
emergency
or-
can bankrupt you. In Europe, you're covered. Americans deal with high insurance premiums, copays, and out-of-pocket expenses. Many Americans will actually avoid seeing doctors because of the high costs. Europeans simply do not face these barriers. Regular checkups, specialist visits, and surgeries are generally free or at a really low cost. The focus in Europe is on preventative care and early treatment. The US system emphasizes treatment after problems arise.
So, like, do you guys have no issue just getting a free or super low cost physical every year? Just physical checkup every year. So you have a yearly physical completely free.
Leading to higher costs or worse outcomes. Another huge difference in healthcare is the cost of prescription drugs. In the US, they are so expensive, whereas in Europe and most of the world, they're way more affordable.
Especially without insurance.
All my American friends out there might find this one to be really shocking. You actually have to pay money to use the bathroom in Europe.
Yeah, this
And
is
the experience
crazy.
It's not all that enjoyable.
Like, what do I have? What if I have to go and I have no cash on me? What do? What do I just go, like, crap my pants, or?
These urinals are pretty close together. It would not fly in the US. No space to pee.
Oh my God, it's unusual to say the best. You gotta stand up to go to the bathroom.
My first time coming to this continent, I could not believe my eyes when they were asking me to pay, usually around $1, but in Paris, I actually had to pay $4 to use the bathroom one time. And you could argue, on one hand, it's nice to have clean facilities when you want to use the bathroom. I mean, nobody wants to pee in filth and dirt, but I mean, come on, paying for a bathroom is something that I just don't agree with, and I'd love to hear from you guys.
I gotta say, I'd rather pee in a little less clean bathroom than than take a crap in my pants on the street.
In the comments down below, what do you think about paying to use the bathroom? Are you for it to have clean facilities, or are you against it? You just want to do your business and move on for the day?
It's not that I'm for or against it. It's just, I'm like, what do I do if I gotta go? Okay? I get stomachache sometimes. And, like, okay.
Just want to take a quick break and thank the sponsor of this video,
Everything's so beautiful.
Airlo. If you're a
Guys, we're
traveler,
going to play through the sponsor, as always, with all videos. But make sure to use the promo codes and links if this interests you and you want to check it out. Just make sure to use, the promo codes and links down from Drew Brinsky.
like me, then you know the importance
Original link,
of
top
needing a
description.
working phone so you can stay connected to the world and stay safe. Airlo is a convenient eSIM technology provider that allows you to have data in 200 countries and regions. Being trusted by more than 10 million travelers worldwide, Airlo is the world's first eSIM store that gives you access to digital SIM cards. I've been personally using it for years, and it's been super helpful to stay connected. It takes just a few minutes to set up and activate, and boom, no more worrying about roaming costs or getting local SIM cards. By using Airlo, I can easily call Ubers, find restaurants, post on social media, or text my friends. And the best part is that you get to keep your original phone number. If you click that QR code or click on the link down below and use the code DREW3, then you'll get $3 off your
Use the
next
code.
eSIM purchase. All right, now let's get back to the Europe versus US story.
Speaking of medication.
This is a 4570.
Damn.
Gun ownership is widespread and accepted in the US, protected by the Second Amendment.
I hear it's good in Switzerland, too. Or
Americans view gun ownership as a fundamental right and a part of their cultural heritage.
Did you grow up around guns like with your father? So
Yeah, he was the one who taught me how to handle firearms and go shooting. Everyone here grew up with them, so they understand the dangers of them, the safety, what you need to be prepared
the most un-American thing about me is I've never held a real gun.
with them. It's a different way of life, I would say.
In other words, guns are a mean of personal protection and a symbol of freedom. And people believe that having a gun is essential for defending themselves and their families. As a result, the US has the highest rate of civilian gun ownership in the world, with 121 guns per 100 citizens. However, this widespread access to firearms comes with significant consequences. For the last 5 consecutive years, there have been more than
Mass shootings.
600 mass shootings, which is defined as when 4 or more people are killed.
We are learning new details about a mass shooting.
The suspect fled, setting off a police chase before crashing into a ditch.
This statistic is really alarming, and it just shares the downside of having guns in the US. It's honestly terrible, and my least favorite thing, if I had to pick one about United States society, all the killings with guns. It's just so sad. I'm numb to the news, and I don't even know what to say when I hear about another shooting.
I think it's even like guns can't the prolification of guns and the ease of getting guns is clearly a factor, but I feel like a lot of the would take something like take a car or something. I think it's guns, but also something is just messed up about America and young people, usually young people, young boys and men, just going out and killing people. It's crazy. Clearly guns is a giant part of it. But also just, why are these people so psychotic?
It's just really, really, really terrible. In contrast, Europe has strict gun control laws and much lower ownership rates. In fact, most European countries require extended background checks, mandatory training, and valid reasons for owning a firearm, such as hunting or sports shooting, not just a casual, everyday gun owner. These strict regulations make it difficult for the average European to own a gun or to get a gun, which as a result makes gun violence extremely rare in Europe. And I gotta be honest, it's much safer here than in the US.
I've never even held a real gun. Obviously, never shot one. I think it'd be cool to go to a shooting range just to for once. But I'm pretty sure that I could just walk into a gun store, probably out of go to New Hampshire or something, and just show my age. I think they do a quick background check, and I don't have any criminal history. And I think I could just buy whatever gun I want.
Both the
Less
USA and
religious.
Europe are home to a wide variety of religion.
Your freaking public squares, guys. And beautiful
the
churches.
US
I'm not religious, but at all. But churches are beautiful.
USA and Europe are home to a wide variety of religion.
Just these squares. These public squares, why don't we have these? no cars
It's
area.
beautiful.
However,
So-
in the USA, religion is expressed more openly,
Amish,
with a lot of
Mormons.
believers attending regular services. Do you guys hear that? The call to prayer. I just got goosebumps. I can't believe I'm in America right now. The US is predominantly Christian, and churches play a central role in community life, often hosting social gatherings and charity drives. Public expressions of faith are common.
Guys, if are these
Community life, often hosting. The US is predominantly Christian, and churches
so these kind of Gothic cathedrals, are these all Catholic buildings, or are they some like Protestant other things? Like if you see this, is like that's a Catholic church. Is that
play a
it?
central role in community life, often hosting social gatherings and charity drives. Public expressions of faith are common, such as prayers at sporting events and religious symbols in schools. You'll also see that in big cities, they organize religious festivals and parades. In contrast, Europe is more secular, with a lot less religious people. Like right here in the Czech Republic, it's actually the most atheist country in the world. Over 60% of Czechs don't believe in religion. 60. This secular mindset is also clear in the politics of many European countries. Governments tend to maintain a clear separation between church and state, ensuring that
Like if you asked me 10 years ago, when I was like more into like religion, I would have been like, good, like every country should be like that. I'm definitely not religious. I'm not religious at all. But I don't mind, like, if it makes you happy and if it's like doesn't bother other, no problem with it.
European countries. Governments tend to maintain a clear separation between church and state, ensuring that religious beliefs do not influence policy. Also, in many European nations, religious education in public schools is minimal or just non-existent.
I think religion should be studied like as part of a history class, right? Rather than some, religious Bible study. I mean, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, like these are all religious books, but also significant historic books. And so if you want to teach them in historic ways in parts of a semester, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
As we approach the lovely Charles Bridge, let's get our facts straight on this one. The USA is definitely a car country. The majority of Americans rely on their personal vehicles for daily commutes, whether it's to work, to a restaurant, or just to the store. We also have a crazy highway system, which makes a car kind of a necessity. This reliance on cars results in a high cost for gasoline, waiting in lines, parking, all these other things that come along with having a car for Americans. Oh, and don't get
Wait, he just said that it's $60 for half of a tank in Europe.
me started on traffic. It's the worst. Go to Los Angeles, San Francisco,
No, thank you.
Dallas, New York, Chicago. Traffic is the worst.
You can drive in New York City. You can drive anywhere.
Europe, on the other hand, has extensive public transportation networks all
the
over the
US.
place. Trams, buses, metros, rollerblades, electric scooters.
We just rented these scooters and we are flying through Rome. This is pretty awesome. Driving through the Roman Forum. Woo!
It's almost like public transportation starts and ends in Europe. It's so immaculate, so clean, so reliable, so safe, and so easy everywhere on this continent.
Cruising around Copenhagen. Yeah. Grandma and grandpa on a bike. Woo!
Are there any accidents with trams? Like, are they pretty safe? They can brake pretty quickly? Or, I mean, I guess I don't see how they could be any more or less dangerous than a
You
vehicle.
think it's different than America? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you can't ride your bikes and your cars on the same street.
As the sun starts to rise here in Prague, I'm just getting goosebumps just looking at this view.
need to
Look
go
at this.
to a
Does not get any better than
chiropractor.
this. Absolutely crazy.
gotta be so much history in
as I
Prague.
was saying, European cities like Prague are literally designed with public transportation in mind. It's also super easy in Europe to take a high-speed rail train to any city. Again, I have to side with the Europeans on this one.
I am outside
It is the position that has changed the most over the last few years of talking to people, mainly Europeans, and watching videos. That I'm getting way more on the European side of transportation infrastructure.
Train station and heading to Prague, and I'm going to show you how easy and convenient it is to take a train in Europe. Let's go. When you walk into train stations, they feel more like airport terminals. Everything in here that you could possibly want or need: food, clothes, bakeries, and they're nice. Like, you want to be inside these places. Look at this, huge. Look at this. All the train stations here have a lovely dome. Although getting a ticket is sometimes a challenge. You just gotta figure out where to go. We're gonna go to English, then we're gonna go to from Dresden to PR Prague. Haha. It's just so easy to take a train here. Platform 13. You go here, you wait for the train, and that's it. You show up 5 minutes before. What's cool about taking trains in Europe is that it's encouraged, and everyone does it. It's just easy and simple, and you can go long distances, short distances. Europe's really got it down, and I wish the US would have a train system. Yeah, we have an Amtrak, but I've never taken it. I don't really know anyone who takes it. I wish there was a train that connected Phoenix to LA, LA to Vegas.
I grew up and still I live in the Northeast. When it comes to transportation infrastructure in the USA, the Northeast, the kind of Boston to Washington, D.C. stretch corridor where a ton of people live, is I would say is the best transportation infrastructure in the country, but by American standards, still not as good as Europe, obviously.
San Francisco to Seattle, way more conveniently. I know on the East Coast, you guys have some stuff like that, but it would be really nice to have that in the US, because taking trains in Europe is awesome. The cities are built for public transportation, which makes it easy to use. I'm just so happy I can do this right now in Europe. If you're an American and you haven't been to Europe, you'll notice right away that the public transportation is incredible and will blow your mind, and fun and easy to use. She's arriving right now. And just like that, I have arrived back in Prague, my favorite city in Europe. Easiest experience ever. Highly recommended. Europe wins when it comes to public transportation, period. Next topic. Getting a higher education in the US is really expensive, and it often leads to significant student debt. Almost all my friends, when we graduated college, we were all poor, and we had to work for like a decade just to pay off our student debt. That's the reality for many Americans who get college degrees. Believe it or not, tuition fees can be tens of thousands of dollars a semester, and it's absolutely crazy. That being said, we do have really, really great teachers, campuses, facilities, and colleges in the US overall are pretty amazing. On the other hand, Europe offers free or very low-cost education, including universities.
Basically, the most of European
or very low-cost education, including universities.
Everything about this photo is just very awesome to me. Sorry.
Basically, in the most of European Union countries, is for free. The only condition is that you know the language of the country.
European education emphasizes
gymnasium. So gymnasium means school to you, but to us, gymnasium is gym class. Frickin'.
Is multicultural awareness and global perspectives, with many students learning multiple languages. And that's another really cool thing about Europe, is people speak many languages because the proximity to countries are so close. On the other hand, Americans live a little bit more inside their own bubbles, focusing more on national news versus international news.
I'm going to defend once, all right, Americans on not knowing other language, okay?
More inside their own bubbles, focus so close.
Imagine this. If every country in Europe, not including Russia, spoke German, okay? Everyone spoke German or English or French. Everyone spoke German in all of Europe other than, say, Russia. How many people in Europe would know Russian and Arabic? Not that many, probably. So I think that's yes, I completely agree. Americans are much more focused on national than international news, for sure, okay? But as far as not knowing more languages, if me growing up in New England, traveling to New York or to Pennsylvania, they spoke different languages, I'm sure that would be more promoted in schooling and you would know more, okay? This is one of the areas as a lack of languages. I'm not defending the lack of knowledge of other countries' politics, international politics, but I really don't think a lot of you would know Arabic if everyone in Europe spoke German, you know?
On the other hand, Americans live a little bit more inside their own bubbles, focusing more on national news versus international news.
Absolutely
If I had to do it all over again, I probably would have gone to a university in the US because the experience was so amazing. I made so many friends. I learned how to live on my own. I went to University of Wisconsin, which is such a great sports school. It's a party school. I was in a fraternity. Like, all these things were amazing, and it made me who I am today. But of course, I can't be a little bit jealous when all my European friends come out of school debt-free. Food for thought.
I was in a fraternity as well in New York.
Piggybacking off the last topic, Europeans really do speak
Sigma
many
Alpha
languages.
Mu.
In fact, I have European friends that can speak 8 to 10 languages.
This beer is very good. Das Bier ist ausgezeichnet. To pivo je výborný. Je to pivo očem vkusné. To pivo je veľmi dobré.
It's so...
Dang it, that kind of gets rid of my argument. He just spoke Russian.
To pivo je výborný. Je to pivo očem vkusné. To pivo je veľmi dobré.
It's so mind-blowing to me because in the US, most people predominantly speak English. Feeling patriotic.
I speak American, sir, not English.
Get some food. All right.
It's a joke.
You might have some people
I shouldn't have to say it's a joke, but some people will say in the comments, like,
speak English. Feeling patriotic.
Let's go get some food. All right.
You might have
Hey,
some
man.
people that learn Spanish or French if they continue to learn so in school. If they continue to try to pursue it after school, that's up
Yo
to them.
hablo
But if you walk
español.
into any grocery store across America and you ask someone what language do they speak, I would guarantee you that they just say English.
Yeah.
It is true that in the US, English dominates in education, media, and daily communication. What's it like to live out here in the countryside of Wyoming?
Oh, it's great until wintertime.
Whereas in Europe, on the other hand, it's a multilingual wonderland with multiple official languages.
Dobrodošli u Zagreb.
Languages.
Bienvenue à Paris.
Dobrodošli u Zagreb.
Norodostor Javik.
Land with multiple official languages.
Dobrodošli u Zagreb.
Norodoshu.
Wonderland with multiple official languages.
Dobrodošli u Zagreb.
Norodoshu Zagreb. Does that mean I'm from Zagreb? Or like, welcome to Zagreb? Is Zagreb Croatia? Zagreb. Opa.
The country of Switzerland, for example, has 4 national languages.
Ooh, let me guess. German, German, French, Italian, English.
Most kids in Europe grow up learning 2 or 3 languages from an early age,
Dang it, I
and they
thought
can
he'd say.
achieve fluency by adulthood. In contrast, Americans might struggle with just 1 foreign language, usually
I
taught
took
in high
6
school
years
with
of
limited
Spanish.
success. This kind of linguistic diversity in Europe is really enriching, both if you live here as a European or if you're just traveling here as an outsider. It makes it so fun and exciting, and as I've always said throughout my travels, diversity is what makes the world go round.
Oh yeah.
Smoking is more common and more socially acceptable in Europe, period. Hands down. Growing up in the US,
It's not even close. Just like with obesity, when I went over there, the stereotype about Americans being fatter, absolutely true. It was so obvious. I didn't go to Europe with this in mind. Are people skinnier or just healthier, more regular bodies? It is undoubtedly true. Okay, Europeans are just in better shape than Americans on the whole, but cigarette smoking was as noticeable of just how many more people smoke cigarettes in Europe.
we have the DARE program,
America.
which I went through, where we are taught in 5th grade that drugs are bad and that we can't smoke and it's going to kill us. Yeah, looking back, it may have been a little bit extreme, those classes, but they really drilled into your head how bad smoking is for your health. And it's true. In my opinion, all around Europe, smoking is more of like a fashion trend. It's like a cool thing to do, and it's almost like if you're sitting with a group of friends and they offer you a cigarette, you almost have to say yes as like a cultural thing. I don't know how else to explain it. Other countries in Asia and Africa and the Middle East are similar in that regard, but I just find it really interesting how people here just smoke and they smoke and they smoke and they smell like smoke all day. At some point, it just becomes a lifestyle. In almost all indoor places in the US, aside from maybe casinos, smoking is now banned and prohibited, and you cannot do it inside. Whereas in Europe, even here in Prague, there are many bars and restaurants that you can actually just light up a cigarette inside. It's really, really interesting. Here in Europe, you can also find cigarette vending machines. How wild is that? In the US, you can find anti-smoking ads, and just to be honest, smoking is just scrutinized across the board. However, when it comes to vaping, the US might have Europe beat. I'm
was
going to open up this
too
chapter
old
on an
for the
emotional
vaping
beat
phase.
because I'm standing right in front of Namisi Miru Church, where I lived and studied abroad in 2012, right down that street. This place has always been a home for me, and if it wasn't for Prague and this exact spot, then I wouldn't be here doing what I do today. A lot of my love for Europe stems from the beautiful history and the old streets. Look at these cobblestones that I'm walking on.
Keep walking and look up to the right.
Oh, wow.
As an American, it is so cool and special that Europe is.
If I had one wish from like a genie, let me go back in time to when they were building these structures like 700 years ago, or like old, really far back, and just I don't want to live there and get like diseases or whatever, but just as like a ghost, just watch them build these things without modern, post-industrial machinery.
As an American, it is so cool and special that Europe is so old, and there's all these beautiful churches, historical monuments, buildings like this with gargoyles on top.
I can't stress this and agree with him enough here. It's so awesome when over here, if a building's from the 1800s, it's pretty old. 1700s, are you insane? If it's like late 1600s, that's super rare and insane. But to you, it's just like, yeah, that's nothing.
We don't have anything that looks remotely similar to this in the US, and everything in the US is new. It's just so charming to walk around and experience and see these beautiful buildings on every single corner. It's freaking awesome.
I love the detail. It's just amazing.
Some cities are more beautiful than others, like Prague, Paris, Madrid, Budapest, Bucharest, Romania. I find these places to be some of the most beautiful. Spectacular views.
The architecture in Prague is outstanding. Everywhere. Gives me the goosebumps.
Man, just walking around Europe is like a freaking museum. We're in the Colosseum. Is it cool? Every corner, everywhere you go. These buildings are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. In the US, we do have some old cities like New York, Boston on the East Coast, which are a few hundred years old, but we ain't got nothing on European cities. Castles, cathedrals, and ancient ruins are preserved and integrated into modern life, with governments designating money to maintain these sites. This is the temple.
Whoever freaking
to modern life with government.
How old is this? Like over 1,000? Like 2,000? 1,000? Is this Greece here? And it's still holding up these things.
It's designating
Roman concrete is a thing, right?
Money to maintain these sites. This is the Temple of Juno, which is a Greek temple that was made in the 5th century BC. It's just absolutely incredible.
5th century BC.
Can you find anything temple that was made in the 5th century BC?
And
it's just absolutely incredible. Can you find anything like this in America?
Not even close. I don't think anywhere in the world you could find something like this. It's incredible.
In big American cities, you see a lot of skyscrapers and new things. But in Europe,
another thing, skyscrapers so rare.
Skyscrapers are almost looked down upon. You want to keep things traditional. You don't want buildings to go above that height. All in all, when it comes to history and beautiful buildings, Europe won, USA.
A giant theme I see in a lot of from the work culture to the architecture to like the building style, the deciding not to do skyscrapers is America. Of course, what will influence a lot of it is the fact that it was like a blank slate, right? Americans came over here, bad things, natives, long story, not a good time for them. But it's just like, yeah, build skyscrapers. You get more room, more office, better for business, good, productiveness. It just seems like productiveness, money, rules when designing things, when it comes to physical things like buildings or lifestyles is so much more, is what I've learned, is surrounding around efficiency, business, productivity in America. And that proliferates through so many things as compared to Europe, which focuses not just on that, right? Like Europeans just seem to work, but also like live in the moment, whereas Americans are just like go to retirement. Freaking.
It's such a different world than ours, but I love both.
The USA thrives on big food portions and unhealthy nutrition.
That's a huge size, Grandma.
That's
You
the
ordered
small.
too much popcorn. Look, we have 3 bags.
I thought they were small.
If you ever go to eat food in the US, you'll find a massive plate with a lot of calories on it, and it's kind of gross. I just think about IHOP or any like American diner, and you sit down and you order something,
Never
and it's
been
just
to
a
IHOP.
lot going on. And to be honest, it's reflected in the people's health. A lot of America is overweight. Go outside of any big city in the country, and you will see people that are very, very large, which is unfortunate and sad. Europe, on the other hand, is clean and petite and nice. And when you eat, you just get a smaller portion of the food.
I think we say petite, or like they're so much smaller. It's like, no, they're just regular healthy size, and we're not. So
Food is absolutely delicious, fresh.
A lot of times the vegetables and ingredients are much fresher and healthier and directly from the source.
and you
Not
guys
everywhere,
subsidize good produce.
Of course, I'm
like
generalizing
France.
a little bit, but I find this to be the case for most places compared to the U.S. And when you think about all this,
Swedish
it kind of makes
meatballs?
sense
Turkish
because the
meatballs?
fast food culture of the U.S. caters to American lifestyles. We're always on the go. We always have like a quick second just to eat and get out of there. We don't have leisurely time to hang out and relax. Whereas here in Europe, everything is just relaxation time. You want to go to the cafe and chill with your friends. You want to go to the restaurant and hang out.
When the weather is nice in Europe, everyone, and I mean everyone, is outside enjoying their lunch, coffee, Aperol Spritz. We just sat down amongst many Germans here in the center of Friedensburg. Everyone just enjoying the outdoors behind me.
And therefore, you do get finer and healthier quality, period. This is a topic that I'm actually really passionate about because as I get older, I'm trying to eat healthier. But when I go to the US, it's hard to eat healthy. It's just difficult. But here in Europe, everywhere you go, there's like little cafes on the corner that are selling salads and non-fried and non-greasy foods. And it just makes it a lot
Love fish.
easier to take care of your health. Europeans recycle more and they focus more on sustainability. As you can see, where you throw away your trash, there's like different bins for different things. And you'll see people actually following the rules and putting all the boxes here, all the bottles in here, and here for the trash. Just imagine how much cleaner the world would be if everybody followed Europeans' lead on this. In fact, many European countries lead in renewable energy and eco-friendly policies, making these practices just a part of daily life. It's normal for them to do these things. They don't have to go out of their way because it's built into the culture.
This city is so clean, even though there's so many tourists here, because these amazing ladies that are just cleaning the city all day long.
Most European countries have strict rules on single-use plastics, promote reusable items, and have good public transportation that reduces car pollution.
Getting on the tram here, beautiful old historic tram of Prague, gives it all the charm in the world.
Green spaces in cities encourage outdoor activities and help improve air quality. In the US, let's just say that we don't care so much about recycling, and it's really a shame. This might be changing in recent generations, but even myself, growing up, we only recycled like big things, like a cardboard box or a big carton of milk. We didn't actually like collect everything separately and put it in different trash cans. We would just throw a water bottle in the same trash can that we would throw food waste. In the US, I see a lot of people littering and not taking care of the streets. And for such a big country with 350 million people, you can imagine the massive impact that it has on the world. I will say that some places in the US do put recycling forward, but overall as a society, as a nation, I think we are light years behind Europe. And this might not be a problem for us in today's world, but for our kids' generation, it's detrimental.
Recycle, please. We do care about Earth.
Many Americans dress really casually, like myself. Baseball cap, regular shirt or athletic shirts. I'm wearing yoga shorts right now. A lot of Americans love to rep their universities or their sporting teams, and that's just how we are. You know, hoodies, regular shoes, socks, shorts. Europeans, on the other hand, are really fancy, and when they dress up to go to dinners and to go out and just to like, whenever they leave their house, even if they go to the grocery store, they just present themselves nicer and they have fancier haircuts and they're more elegant looking. And personally, I feel a little bit like an outsider in some situations when I go sit outside on a cafe and everyone's looking nice and I'm just there. Like, clearly there's an American dude that shows up, but this is usually how they can pick out Americans from the crowd in any city in the world. It's like how they dress. Everything's so posh and fancy here. I feel like I stand out wearing my Be Spontaneous shirt. We stumbled upon a wedding and I don't think we fit in very well. Everyone's dressed super nicely. This is also reflected in the workplace, in the work environment, where in the US, a lot of companies are more casual with like jeans and just a regular shirt, whereas in Europe, they take fashion more seriously and people have to dress up, look nicer, and hey, there's nothing wrong with looking nice, you know? There might be many Americans watching this out there that really like looking nice, and that's
I've never felt shorter than I have in my life than when I was in the Netherlands. I'm 5'10". I don't know what that is in centimeters, but I felt like I was 4'9" when I was in the Netherlands.
awesome.
I know that's
I'm just saying,
different.
overall, as a society,
That was a little off topic here, but I just thought
care a
of it.
lot more about their looks. Random side note, this tower, called Žižkov Tower in Prague, is a really awkward looking building, and you can see there's black babies going up and down the side of it right there. Really, really weird and funky. Let's look in this circle, for example. All the houses are really nice and neat. Most of them are just apartments. The buildings are right next to each other. Everything's kind of laid out perfectly nicely. There's plazas. People are reading in the park, sitting in their little chairs. It almost feels like a fake life, like you would see in a movie, like a giant movie set. That's how it feels here in most of Europe. Wow, that is...
Wow, that's so cool.
And it's nice. It's nice to hang out.
Now I think of like, what do Europeans feel like when they go to America? Just like, this place is hideous. What's going on?
Sit down. It's freaking beautiful. A lot of the buildings are really old. They've been here for many years, and that's just how they are. This is the lovely Prague Castle, the oldest castle in the entire world. First time in Milan, chilling by the famous Duomo. This really epic-looking old structure. A dream come true trip right here. A lot of times the buildings will have these cool like statues and gargoyles and sculptures like inside of it, just because of the history of Europe is really old and cool. And I think that's pretty awesome. One thing that I really don't like about the situation in Europe is that they don't have AC almost anywhere. In Prague, in summer right now, we've been suffering because they just say like, oh, it's only 6 weeks of the year, it's hot, but like it's freaking burning in there. And yes, I sound like a spoiled American right now talking, but it's miserable. Wow, it's so clean here. Almost everywhere you go in the U.S., aside from some of the big cities on the East Coast, everything's new. The buildings are new, which means they can be fancier, which means they can have better circulation, air conditioning, insulation, all these things. In the U.S., we love our patios and our decks outside, and we just like to have a room for things. I literally cannot believe how big these houses are. Whereas in Europe, you don't really get that. You might get a little balcony that you can sit outside. Other than that, you're really just confined to a smaller space in your flat, which is what they call apartments here. They call them flats. We also have huge appliances like dishwashers and washing machines that are really big and nice to use. Also dryers. You cannot find those all over Europe. A lot of times they hang their clothes to dry. Many American homes also have big kitchens, taller ceilings, things like that. Whereas in Europe, things are a little bit more tighter and condensed because everyone tends to live like in the city center, especially if there's apartments and stuff. You just have less space in general. Like America's everything's big. Like Texas, things are bigger in Texas. Big cards in Texas. They definitely party big in Texas. Whereas here in Europe, everything's kind of petite. That's all the water we get. Like just a tiny little...
Yeah.
It seems like all of the staircases are like a death sentence. That like, they're like... that like 80-degree slant.
It's always like this big, like my face big.
But if I had to pick one, Europe all the way. Look how nice this is. I can't get over this spot. Fantastic. For some weird reason, America uses the imperial system, which means measuring distance in miles, weight in pounds, and volume in gallons. It's so funny to me because most of the world has no idea what any of this is. Here in Europe and almost everywhere else in the world, they use the metric system. That means covering distances in kilometers, weight in kilograms, and volume in liters. All of these things can be pretty confusing for Americans traveling in Europe and vice versa. But if you want to be a more worldly citizen, I'm talking to you Americans, you should try to learn the metric system. It's really helpful for travel. And it's also very simple and convenient, based on units of 10 and making calculations and conversions much easier. Also, don't forget that in the US, we use Fahrenheit to tell weather. It's minus 22 degrees. I can't feel my hands or my face. Right now, it's about 85 degrees Fahrenheit.
What is that in Celsius? That is, hold on. That's like 53 divided by, it's like 21.5. 20, is that like 23 degrees Celsius?
But In Europe and the rest of the entire world, they use Celsius, or right now it's probably around 30 degrees. Luckily, I know both because I've been traveling the world for 12 years, so it's easier for me to have conversations with non-Americans about things like weather. But this is always something that confuses me about the US, and I think it's just because we like to be bigger and greater and different than everyone else in the world. In the US, coffee is consumed on the go, with people grabbing their morning cups from drive-through places.
Any kind of hot coffee.
Americano.
I'll have a latte.
They're just quickly running into Starbucks, ordering on the app, and running out. We also pretty much only consume coffee in disposable paper cups. In Europe, it's a whole different story.
So you always drink it while standing at the bar. It's cheaper that way.
It's that bitter taste, just like goes through your veins. It's like one sip wakes you up. I'm serious.
This is like a perfect cappuccino with the foam top. Look at this. First bite of a cappuccino has to be with a spoon.
The coffee culture is alive and real here, but people take their time when they drink, and they see it as more of like a social thing. Even if they're by themselves, they'll still go to the street corner, sit down at a cafe outside, of course, enjoying the beautiful day, and get a coffee, and they'll just sit there and either read or work. It's more of like an enjoyable leisure activity. They always have like coffee mugs. Of course, the Europeans don't like waste with plastic and paper. They always just have everything feel more proper and more solidified. And it's all about the experience, of course.
Got the coffee, bringing it now to grandma.
When it comes to breakfast in the US, everything is really heavy and greasy. Think about omelets, think about breakfast burritos, pancakes, hash browns, bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches. These are heavy, heavy, heavy items that make you really full and have a lot of calories.
All the flavors of cheese and beans and egg and sauce on one plate.
In Europe, breakfast is nothing more than a little pastry.
Buttery, flaky, puffy pastry.
Give me a
or
chocolate
little
croissant.
or
I'm
something
good.
sweet.
This is everything I want right now. A small espresso and a chocolate croissant. It's so great.
It's so different. And it's funny, like here in Europe, all the breakfast places that you'll go to, like good breakfast places, are like American branded. It'll be like American breakfast, American sausage, American scrambled eggs. The breakfast is one of the biggest differences that I find between Europe and the US. It's crazy different. In Europe, if it's not a croissant, it's just like a piece of fruit or a little bit of cheese or one slice of bread.
A little yogurt.
Soft and mushy. Absolutely worth it.
I will say though that the bakeries in Europe are awesome. They're amazing. They actually bake bread fresh every day in most countries around Europe. So it smells good on the streets, and you know that you're getting quality bread. It's not like processed. It's not like ordered on a big truck and shipped over. So I definitely side with Europe on this one. Although I got to admit, I do love Starbucks.
I'm not a Starbucks fan. It's not only that it's overpriced, I'm just not a fan.
This one really makes me feel ashamed to be American in Europe. Why are we so loud and...
Wait, what was it? Public what?
This one really makes me feel ashamed to be American in Europe. Why are we so loud and obnoxious? Like, we have to like scream when we're coming out of the bars at night, and we have to like be picking fights in bars and be like, "Oh, America." I really don't like this about American culture for whatever it is. I don't know why we always have to be the loud guys and the good guys. I think Brits and Aussies are kind of similar in this regard. But when it comes to Europeans, they're much quieter. Like, there could be a lot of people out and about, but they're not like screaming and chanting. They're just like sitting, enjoying their beer or their wine and just like hanging out. I like that culture.
Thank you.
In general, Europeans are just more reserved. And when you're dining, people just don't talk that loud. They just keep to themselves. It's kind of nice. Social gatherings in America are loud and energetic. But in Europe, people are more respectful of other people's personal space. I also think the contrast in behavior can be seen in customer service, where American employees are typically more enthusiastic and outgoing, and they kind of won't stop talking to you. It's all that like fake conversation, like, "Hey, how's your day going? Oh, what are you up to today? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, we should hang out later." It's very American to be like fake in that regard. This really drives me crazy about Americans, and when I'm home, I feel really out of my element. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that, but like going to the grocery store, I don't need to like share my life story with the lady checking out. Like, just check out, you go on with your day, I go on with my day. I don't need to like tell you what my plans are later and how my work is going and all that. Like, Americans see this as being friendly, but for me, I just see it as pointless conversation that just doesn't need to happen because you don't know that person. If you know them and they're in your friend group and circle, it's different. European.
I think a lot of the times it's less like you just want to do that and more like you're not comfortable with, like a lot of Americans just aren't comfortable with like being in silence with a stranger or something. And so like you just, But it's like, no, we don't have to talk, you know? Like,
Europeans cut through all that bullshit. Especially staff at a restaurant or anywhere on the street interactions are a lot more formal and blunt, and it could be considered rude, but I don't know, I kind of like it.
Wait, look, the risotto with the meat risotto.
Another example is
I love bluntness and I hate sugarcoating, and I like just getting to the point, not in a rude way. And so I love that European concept. I hate pointless conversation that has no purpose other than to not be silent. I don't like it. And so
if you're on the train in Europe, people are just going to sit and keep to themselves, kind of like in Asia. But in the US, people might be talking on the phone loudly or hanging out with their bros. And like, I guess for me, I prefer to be more on the quieter side. I don't like to be obnoxious in front of people. I think I get this trait from my mom, who doesn't want to be like the center of negative attention, which is a good thing. But it's definitely a stark difference between how Americans act in public and how Europeans act in public. And this is one of the biggest differences between Europe and the US that I see. And I definitely side with Europeans on this one. Of course, another disclaimer is not every European and every American is like this. I'm very much generalizing, okay? But this is just what I see and what I've experienced from spending 2.5 years in Europe.
Irving inside, the layup. Oh!
I love how I don't know if I love, actually. I like variety, but I think the lack of diversity in big sports, like we don't have one sport in the US that just dominates. Like you guys have soccer, football, over in Europe, right? So I feel like sports, therefore, become much more intense on the fan base side because so like everyone is a fan of this one sport, and it's so ingrained in the society that that produces a different audience reaction and environment around sports and sports entertainment and stuff like that. So.
Saving one of the best topics for last because I am a huge sports fan, athlete. I've played many sports and I love watching sports. It's a little bit different in America versus Europe. I will say that there are passionate fans, respectively. But of course in Europe, it's all about football, or as we say it in the US, soccer. It's super popular here. The Euro Cup just happened. Fans are like crazy, crazy, crazy passionate about their country, about their inner leagues.
So like over here, like if there's a big basketball game, right? Well, everyone around you, even if they're sports fans, they might be more of a football fan, American football fan, or a hockey fan, or a golf or whatever, right? But there it's like soccer matches on. Everyone's on board over there in Europe. And so it doesn't divide the enthusiasm.
About football or soccer all around Europe and the whole world, really. In the US, it's primarily basketball, baseball, American football. Emphasis on the American football because that sport is really only played in the US. And of course, like golf and tennis, but these are popular in both places.
Horton, hook 'em horns!
Sports that are common between the US and Europe are hockey, basketball, tennis, and golf. I think those four sports are really active and played among the average Joe in the countries and also for professionals. Europe also has...
I would say, did you say soccer or football?
American football world, really. In the US, it's primarily basketball, baseball, American football. Emphasis on the American football because that sport is really only played in the US. And of course, like golf and tennis, but these are popular.
So when it comes to professional sports, yeah, I would say the MLS, you know, the soccer, I'm saying soccer, it's just because it confused me when I talk about America and football. Soccer. In America is a huge youth sport, okay? And so up to like high school, I would say it depends. Like down in the South, football is just king, especially high school, college level. But soccer, like I would say a large number of Americans played soccer at one point in their life, you know, as a youth sport.
In both places.
Horton, hook 'em horns!
Sports that are common between the US and Europe are hockey, basketball, tennis, and golf. I think those four sports are really active and played among the average Joe in the countries and also for professionals. Europe also has regional sports like rugby and cricket, which you can find in certain regions, but not all over Europe. Here's a major difference though. In the US, college sports are huge. I went to the University of Wisconsin. We went to 3 Rose Bowls during my college years, which is American football. It's like a big event for those non-Americans out there. We also have really big hockey and we have really big basketball, and we go to March Madness every year. And like, I went to a lot of games as a kid. In fact, I chose Wisconsin because of the sports. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to go to a school with great sports. I'm a passionate sports fan. European sports are like dead. I don't even know if there are competitions of like European basketball for other teams. I actually don't think that exists. And if it does exist, please let me know, because I've never heard about it.
No, there's a Euro basketball league. It's pretty freaking good too. Think of all the great European players we have now, like Sabonis, Doncic, Jokic. I can go on. Giannis. European basketball is other than the NBA, I would say is the highest played league of basketball in the world. So
on big college campuses in the US, we have massive games that are publicly televised to millions of people, and there's a lot of things happening around the stadiums. There's tailgating and pre-gaming, and all the restaurants and bars are busy near the stadiums, and it's like a cultural immersion thing when there's a game on a college campus. I will say, though, the energy and excitement around any European football match is unparalleled to anything that we can find in the U.S. I haven't been to many, but I have seen them on TV, and I have many friends who have gone, and I know that the environments are crazy.
Look like riots.
In Europe, the football teams often have deep historical roots in their communities, which honestly creates a strong sense of identity and pride because these teams have been around for hundreds of years. So it kind of makes sense. In the U.S.,
I'm sure South American football might rival European football in terms of fan intensity. Like I hear, like in Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil, Colombia, very serious football games.
Big sports are really like big businesses when you think about it, and that's why teams relocate and change names. It's all about the money. In any regard, the cultural importance is clear for sports, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Europe, and I find the way that it's expressed is really, really interesting. All right, and that wraps up the cultural differences between the US.
That was a 40-minute video, went by pretty fast.
USA and Europe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was really fun for me to make it. Keep in mind that this is all coming from my own personal travel experience. As an American and someone who's spent over 2.5 years in Europe, traveling around, I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Which one do you prefer to live in, travel in, or just be in? For me, I always prefer to travel in Europe, but when it comes to the conveniences of everyday life and just where it hits home more with family, friends, sports, and everything else, I gotta say, full on Americano. I love you all, and I'm looking forward to your comments in the video down below, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Just like me, I'm one American too with one opinion here, but his opinion is way more legitimate than mine. I mean, I think he's being a little humble. Of course, he's just one person too, but he's traveled an insane amount and has so much life experience in these places to make these comparisons. I think any one person can't make generalized statements, but I think if anyone can do a good job in that, it's Drew Binsky. So love you all. Great video. Hope to see you guys all in the comments answering any questions I had, anything you disagree with, anything you want to add to the video or what I said. Love to see it, and hopefully I'll see you guys next video. Bye. Like and subscribe.